With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Welcome to the Crypto 101 show, where we dive into the world of cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, blockchain, and all the technology with it. Whether you're experienced or a beginner to crypto, our goal is to break down complex concepts and make it easy for you to understand the basics. From Bitcoin to altcoins, we'll cover it all in a way that's easy to digest and provide listeners with the knowledge and understanding they need to make informed decisions and better critical thought. Sit back, relax, and let's simplify your understanding of cryptocurrencies on the Crypto 101 show. The Bitcoin Series Part 11. The Bitcoin Culture Wars, the Toxicity, Purity Tests, and Political Divides within Bitcoin. I need to start off by saying this is not financial advice, so if you're looking for that, the show isn't for you. The content of this podcast episode is for informational purposes only. The opinions expressed here are not meant to be taken as financial investment or any other advice. Welcome back to the Bitcoin Series Part 11, the Bitcoin Culture Wars. At this point, we've talked about power, policy, privacy, and energy. But today we're stepping into a different battlefield. Not necessarily about how Bitcoin works, but how people fight about it. We know that Bitcoin is neutral code, but the culture around it is anything but. In this episode, we're looking at the ideological divides inside the Bitcoin community itself. The libertarians who see it as sound money and freedom from government, the leftists who see it as a tool for equity and resistance, and the purists, the so-called maximalists, who believe Bitcoin is the only path forward. So the question is, can something built to unite us around shared rules end up dividing us through tribal values? Let's jump into it. Question 1. Why are Bitcoiners often divided between libertarians, leftists, and purists? Stepping into the Bitcoin space can feel like walking into a bar mid-argument. Libertarians in one corner, leftists in another, purists at the mic, and everyone thinks they're holding the real torch for Bitcoin. But why is this space, or one built on the idea of freedom, so divided? It starts with Bitcoin itself. To the Bitcoin community, it's not just a currency, it's a blank slate, a mirror or a revolution waiting to be claimed. And because it's decentralized, it doesn't come with a party or a policy or a philosophy preloaded. That makes it incredibly powerful, but also incredibly interpretable. The libertarians saw it first: sound money, no central banks, and freedom from government overreach. For them, Bitcoin is digital gold and a protest against fiat tyranny. Think, end the Fed, live off the grid, audit everything. The leftist and progressive arrived with a different lens. What if Bitcoin could fix financial exclusion, bank the unbanked, fund resistance, build mutual aid outside of broken institutions? Their Bitcoin isn't about hoarding, it's about redistributing power. And then there are purists, Bitcoin maximalists who believe anything that isn't Bitcoin is a scam, and anyone who questions the protocol is either misinformed or malicious. For them, Bitcoin isn't a revolution, it's the revolution, and deviation is dangerous. And what happens when these groups collide? Conflict, philosophical gatekeeping, culture wars, and ironically, the very thing that makes Bitcoin powerful is its neutrality, and its openness becomes the battlefield for control. Because everyone wants to believe they're fighting for the true version of freedom. But often, underneath these debates isn't just code or economics, it's values, it's trauma, it's control, it's identity. So why are Bitcoiners so divided? Because Bitcoin is big enough to hold multitudes and messy enough to force us to wrestle with each other's definitions of liberation. It's not just about money anymore. It's about what kind of future that money is supposed to build, and that conversation is far from over. Question 2. Is maximalism helping or hurting adoption? Let's get into the fire starter of the Bitcoin world, maximalism. If you have spent more than a few minutes on Bitcoin Twitter, you probably encountered it, the Bitcoin or bust mindset. The idea that Bitcoin is the only legitimate cryptocurrency and that everything else, Ethereum, Solana, DeFi tokens, stablecoins, is either a scam, a distraction, or outright enemy of the mission. Maxis will say they're defending the protocol, that they're upholding the signal in a sea of noise. They want strong principles, scarcity, decentralization, security. And in their view, Bitcoin is the only thing that truly delivers all three. To be fair, maximalism did help protect Bitcoin early on. It drew clear lines. It kept the focus. It resisted hype cycles and rug pulls. It filtered out a lot of noise. If you're building a revolution, you need people willing to say no to dilution, to corruption, to mission creep. But what starts as protection can quickly become exclusion. People who ask questions can get attacked. Developers who build new tools get smeared. Activists and progressives who see Bitcoin as a tool for financial justice are called statists or grifters. And if you use any other chain or tech, even for good reasons, you're out. This kind of gatekeeping isn't just bad PR, it's bad strategy. It turns off newcomers. It creates echo chambers, and it undermines the core value of Bitcoin, open participation. And to be frank, maximalism isn't monolithic. There are Bitcoiners who hold strong convictions without resorting to toxicity, but the loudest voices often drown out the thoughtful ones. And when the culture becomes more about purity tests than building bridges, adoption suffers. Maximalists help steer people away from real scams like BitConnect, Luna, and FTX. But the flip side, that protective instinct can get weaponized. Here's just a sampling of examples. The block size wars, 2015 to 2017. This was the first major civil war in Bitcoin. Some developers and miners wanted to increase the size of Bitcoin blocks to allow for faster, cheaper transactions. Others, the purists, said, no, that breaks decentralization. It got ugly, forums were censored, developers were doxxed, the community split, and out of it came Bitcoin Cash, a hard fork that's still around, but never came close to replacing Bitcoin. Takeaway: maximalism won the war, but not without collateral damage. Another one is attacks on Jack Dorsey, Strike, and human rights activists. Jack Dorsey, former CEO of Twitter and one of Bitcoin's biggest corporate backers, has faced criticisms from maxis for not being pure enough. Same goes for Alex Gladstein of the Human Rights Foundation, who uses Bitcoin to support activists under authoritarian regimes. Why? Because they've engaged with Lightning, with stablecoins, or simply acknowledged nuance. Takeaway: even pro-Bitcoin figures can't escape the purity tests. And the last example is Ethereum hatred and culture shaming. There's a meme in the Bitcoin community: have fun staying poor. Maximalists often lob it at people who buy other assets or even dare to question Bitcoin dogma. Ethereum, a shitcoin. DAOs, useless. Web3, a joke. Takeaway: it creates a hostile culture that pushes curious people away instead of inviting them in. So is maximalism helping or hurting adoption? The answer isn't black and white. Maximalism helped define Bitcoin's core values. It shielded it from dilution and captured attention in a very noisy space. But it's also becoming a liability. Newcomers don't want to be yelled at. Builders don't want to be gatekept. Communities don't want to be told they're too late, too poor, or too uneducated to join. The question for this generation of Bitcoiners is, can you hold strong beliefs without burning down the tent? Can you stay principled and welcoming? Because if Bitcoin is going to be for everyone, it can't only be led by the loudest few. Question 3. How do we build more inclusive Bitcoin culture? If Bitcoin really is for everyone, then the culture around it should reflect that. But it doesn't always feel that way. The loudest voices in the room are often tech bros, libertarian purists, or gatekeepers who make newcomers feel like they have to pass a test just to belong. And that's a problem, because if you believe Bitcoin is a tool for freedom, then it shouldn't matter if you're a coder or a cashier, a Wall Street dropout, or a minimum wage worker. If you value sovereignty, then it shouldn't matter. So how do we actually create that kind of culture? First, stop with the purity test. Bitcoin isn't a religion. It's not about who got in first, who runs the biggest node, or who yells the loudest on Twitter. It's about decentralizing power, and that means sharing it, making room for more kinds of voices, more lived experiences, more people who don't look or sound like the OGs. Second, we make education a core value, not just a marketing tool. Because if people can't understand Bitcoin, they can't use it. If they can't use it, then it's already failed before it's even started. Education has to meet people where they are, in their language, at their level, in their context. That might mean workshops in underserved communities, translated resources, community-led meetups, or podcasts just like this one. Third, celebrate the builders too, not just the holders. The culture today often rewards those who stack sats and dunk on newbies. But the real heroes, they're the people making open source wallets, teaching their neighbors, translating the white paper, helping a protester on board, or explaining inflation to the family in plain English. That's Bitcoin in action. And finally, remember why most people showed up in the first place. Not just to get rich, not just to opt out, but to build something better. A system that's harder to rig, a future that's fairer, a culture that values truth, transparency, and community over clout. Because a revolution won't start with code, it starts with people. And if Bitcoin is going to reach everyone, then everyone needs to feel like they are allowed to take part in building it. Here's where we are now. Bitcoin might be code, but culture is the operating system it's run on. And like any community, it reflects the hopes, fears, and power struggles of the people who show up. So if Bitcoin is going to be for everyone, it can't just be sound money. It has to be sound culture. Because if this is a revolution, it doesn't stop at decentralization. It has to move through inclusion, humility, and the willingness to listen to people who don't agree with it. Maximalism might protect the protocol, but empathy builds the future. Thanks for tuning in to part 11 of the Bitcoin series. Hopefully, I'll see you in part 12, where we take the conversation to how will governments try to control Bitcoin. Until then, stay curious, stay grounded. I want to be extremely upfront that I try my best to leave all of my opinions out of this. I know this is very condensed and simplified, but I want you to gain your own understanding and beliefs and not be persuaded by me. I hope this helped you gain a better grasp of it. Please remember to share, follow, and subscribe to our mailing list and to your favorite podcast app for future episodes so you can gain more with your crypto knowledge. If this sparked something in you or made you question what's possible, I'd love to hear about it. And if you found this valuable, share it, tag someone who needs to hear it, or just sit with it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Crypto 101 Show. If you would like to join our email list, email us at thecrypto101show@gmail.com. For more helpful tips, subscribe in your favorite podcast app and leave a review so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.